Hi everybody, so another Integrity Commission report is out. This one has to do with a company that has been associated with Prime Minister Andrew Holness. I'm going to tell you what's in the report. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Dionne Jackson-Miller. Stay tuned. So this is a report of an investigation concerning irregularities in relation to construction of a residential development at 2 Waycliffe Close, that's in Beverly Hills, Kingston 6, contrary to the terms of the building permit issued to a company called Estatebridge Holdings by the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. So the report says it was started following receipt of a report alleging irregularities in the development and building approval processes relating to property owned by Dr. Andrew Holness. However, initial inquiries led the investigation to focus on a residential development located at 2 Waycliffe Close in Beverly Hills, which is owned by a company called Estatebridge. The investigation found that the development was being constructed contrary to the terms of the planning approval and building permit issued by the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, the KCMC, and the Building Act. While planning approval and the building permit were issued for the construction of 4 semi-detached townhouses in 2 two-story buildings consisting of 2-bedroom units. At the commencement of the investigation, the erected development consisted of 4 four-bedroom units. So, in other words, the permit was for 4 units to be constructed. Each unit would have 2 bedrooms. The director is saying that when this investigation started, the development was being done with units that had 4 bedrooms instead of 2. The director concludes that the breaches were deliberate and that the directors of Estatebridge are liable. The director also concludes that KCMC failed to effectively discharge their responsibilities to ensure compliance with the terms of the approvals granted, and recommendations have been made. So just a little bit of background, and the first thing I see people asking, what does this have to do with the Integrity Commission? Well, in the report section on jurisdiction, it says that sections 33 and 51 of the Integrity Commission Act empower the Director of Investigations to investigate irregularities around prescribed licenses. So that is what gives the Director the power under law to look into this issue. On July 10, 2024, the following allegations were received: that Mr. Holness is the owner of property on which construction is being carried out contrary to the terms of the planning approval and building permit granted by the KCMC. The allegation went on to say that Mr. Holness often requests a service from his architect to draw a blueprint that will be sent to KCMC, but a second blueprint will be drawn to be used for the actual construction, and the allegation was that this was being done at one of his developments in Beverly Hills / Cherry Garden. On July 11, 2024, the director undertook an unannounced visit to KCMC to inquire as to whether Dr. Holness had directly or indirectly applied for a building permit for development in Beverly Hills / Cherry Gardens. Inquiries revealed that the only development in this area that Dr. Holness was in some way connected with is a residential development at 2 Waycliffe Close, and that this was owned by a company called Estatebridge. And he mentioned some specific people who are pertinent to the investigation. Xavier Chivans, Chief Engineering Officer at KCMC, Roshane Hamilton, Field Officer, Orion Brown and Sean Martin, Field Officer, Kenado Nesbeth, KNN Designs and Consultants, Norman Brown, Sigia Anderson and Adam Holness, who are directors and shareholders of Estatebridge, Donovan Williams, the company secretary of Estatebridge, and Dr. Holness, the legal and beneficial owner of a company called Imperium Investments, which is a former shareholder of Estatebridge. And the director says what the investigation sought to establish was the following: whether there exists any development in Beverly Hills / Cherry Gardens that was or were connected to Dr. Holness, and if so, whether the requisite approvals were obtained for their construction, whether the terms and conditions of any approvals and or permits issued had been adhered to, whether there were any breaches of the Building Act, the Town and Country Planning Act, the Integrity Commission Act, and any other relevant legislation, and whether recommendations ought to be made in relation to the subject. So the report speaks of the process of investigation, how many statements were taken, and so on. The director says inquiries of the KSAMC reveal that the only development in Beverly Hills / Cherry Gardens that Dr. Holness was in some way connected with is 2 Waycliffe Close. This was owned by Estatebridge. The directors of Estatebridge were Sigia Anderson, Norman Brown, Adam Holness. The shareholders, Sigia Anderson, Norman Brown, Imperium had held 5,001 ordinary shares when the company was incorporated, surrendered 1,000 of those on the 28th of January 2021, and then surrendered the other 4,001 shares on the 20th of October 2022. Adam Holness, also a shareholder. The director says one of the company's shareholders, Imperium, is familiar because of a recently concluded investigation into the statutory declarations of Dr. Holness. So Dr. Holness was asked about Imperium, and he said Imperium is a company in which he was sole director and shareholder. In 2020, he wound up a company called ADMAT Incorporated, which is incorporated in St. Lucia, in which he and his sons were shareholders and directors, and the assets from ADMAT were transferred to Imperium. Dr. Holness had also said in a letter to the Integrity Commission that the company called Estatebridge had entered into a land development agreement to develop property owned by ADMAT at 2 Waycliffe Close. The principals of ADMAT intended to wind up the company and transfer its business to a locally registered company. And in anticipation of that winding up process, ADMAT liquidated and or transferred its assets to Imperium, except for 2 Waycliffe Close, which it was considered more economical to transfer directly to Estatebridge, since that was the entity that would develop the land and ultimately subdivide and sell the units. This is information that came from Dr. Holness. The property at 2 Waycliffe Close was therefore, Dr. Holness said, transferred to Estatebridge free and clear. Imperium and Adam Holness held shares in Estatebridge to secure interest in 2 Waycliffe Close, which was then the main asset of Estatebridge. The director therefore established that Dr. Holness is connected to the development at 2 Waycliffe Close by virtue of ADMAT Incorporated, of which Dr. Holness and his sons were shareholders and directors, having initially owned the land that was developed, and in relation to his roles as sole director, shareholder, and beneficial owner of Imperium, which had shares in Estatebridge at the time that the planning and or building permit was issued to them on July 12, 2021. While the director notes that Imperium surrendered its shares in Estatebridge on October 20, 2022, the director considers it highly likely that the development at 2 Waycliffe Close is the subject of the allegations, meaning the allegations that set off this particular investigation that went into his office. So therefore, inquiries were made into this particular development. The report then goes through the law in relation to the building and planning approval process. On July 12, 2021, the KSAMC granted planning and building permission to the applicant Estatebridge to erect a multi-family development, and that was going to be made up of 4 townhouses. The approvals were for 4 units to consist of 2 bedrooms, living, dining, kitchen, swimming pool, multi-purpose area, laundry, and other spaces. Now, the director investigated the development, and he says he executed a warrant on July 12, 2024 During the course of the inspection, the layout of the units was checked against the building permit that had been granted to Estatebridge. The director found that the development was constructed as 4 townhouses, but that there were significant deviations in the construction of the townhouses when juxtaposed with the building plan that had been approved by the KSAMC. And the following deviations were observed: an additional concrete partition wall constructed in the area labeled laundry. 2 additional concrete partition walls constructed, resulting in the conversion of a powder room to a bathroom and an additional bedroom. This was in the area that was labeled dining/living room and terrace. An additional concrete partition wall was put in the area labeled balcony. This resulted in a reduction of the approved balcony square foot and the construction of an additional bedroom and ensuite bathroom. All the required electrical, plumbing, tiling, and painting works to facilitate these changes modification were also executed. In total, the report says 2 ensuite bathrooms were added while a powder room was removed. Consequently, each townhouse consisted of 4 bedroom units instead of 2 bedrooms, as was approved. The required electrical, plumbing, tiling, and painting for 4 bedroom units were in place. The director also observed demolition activities underway at the development, where a number of partition walls which constituted deviations from the approved building plan were being removed. Upon close inspection of the partition walls that were being demolished, the steelwork seemed to have formed part of the original construction. And the report then exhibits photographs of what was seen on July 12. This is one of the photographs, and the caption says it's showing demolition of an additional concrete partition wall in the laundry room. This photograph is showing demolition, the director says, of an additional concrete wall in the living dining area on the ground floor. Given the findings of the first inspection, the director sought to determine whether an application for amendment to the approved building plan had been submitted by Estatebridge. The chief engineering officer at the KSAMC said no application for amendment was made. On July 23, 2024, the director executed a second warrant. It was observed that the partition walls that were being demolished during the first inspection appeared to have been completely demolished. In light of the issues highlighted by the director's first inspection and the demolition work undertaken, he then sought the accounts. He went to talk with the individuals responsible for the development and those at the KSAMC charged with overseeing compliance with the permissions granted. Okay, so let's just summarize what the report has said so far. Allegations came into the Integrity Commission in relation to a development that was said to have been associated with Prime Minister Andrew Holness, and the development, it was alleged, was being built in breach of the permits that had been issued. The Director of Investigation says that investigation showed that the development was being built by a company called Estatebridge. He says a connection to Prime Minister Holness is that Imperium, which is a company wholly owned and operated by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, was initially a shareholder in Estatebridge. It has since surrendered all the shares that it owned in the company. And he said he executed a warrant on July 12. During that inspection, he said what was seen were significant deviations from the building permit, and that what was being built was 4-bedroom units instead of 2-bedroom units. When he executed warrants and did official investigations and inspections, he said those additional walls he had observed that were being put in breach of the building permit, he said those were being demolished on his first official visit, and on the second visit had been completely demolished. He said in light of what he found, he then went to interview the officials at the KSAMC as well as company officials. So I'm going to tell you the rest in the next video that I'm going to be doing. Let me just say that after the report came out, statements also came out from the Prime Minister as well as the directors of Estatebridge denying the allegations and the conclusions in this report. And all of that I will deal with fully in my follow-up video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dionne. I'll see you next time.